naturalist Aldo Leopold. If you've never read anything about him, like a Sand County Almanac, that's an inspiration, absolute huge inspiration. And if you've never read his the biographies, there's a smaller biography called the Green Fire, referring to the green fire in wolves' eyes. And at the time, he was a wildlife naturalist who was doing what everybody else says, that you'll get more deer to hunt if you kill off all the wolves. He obviously changed his tunes there dramatically. So, and his there's also a huge biography of him, and quite a character, quite an incredible person. Okay, but enough of Aldo. So I am attempting to put together writing a book about butterflies, and then coping with the aging process, as we all do, if we stay interested in it. So it's been a long road between thinking about doing a book and getting here. One is lots and lots and lots of photography, becoming a better photographer, definitely that. Coming up with what I call the somewhat insane idea of even writing a book, because I had no experience and I was not an expert in butterflies, but that's one way to learn. And of course, researching became a huge nightmare that I had no concept how much of a nightmare that would be. And writing. And then of course, coping with what life throws at you on a normal basis, from illnesses to deaths to all sorts of issues that you have to kind of cope with and work around. And then finding a publisher. And some people would say, you didn't find a publisher first? And I said, no, because I had no idea what I was going to come up with. So a friend of mine who was working for the Kansas City Star newspaper at the time, they also had a branch that did local publications. Got an appointment with him, and he said his wife likes butterflies, and there I was. I don't think it happens that easy that often. And the other big part of getting a book done is getting it reviewed by hopefully some friends that don't mind reading, for, like Mike said, 400 some pages, because I needed people to look at my layout, because there's 5,000 different ways that I could have errors there, just plain typos, grammar. I thought I wasn't too bad at grammar until I had friends that were a whole lot better than me. And then I went, oh, no, I don't think I know grammar very well after all. And technical correctness. That's what the publisher said. They didn't actually care that much about typos. Obviously, they didn't want lots of them, but they were more concerned about technical correctness, because that is enough to kill a book. So anyway, from that point, then getting it to the final stage of being published, which when it first arrived, it was at a local arboretum called Powell Gardens, where we used to host they hosted a huge butterfly event, and our local Idalia Society, our butterfly club, had lots of caterpillars and things to show. And the books were there, because that was my deadline, was to get it ready there. And I wouldn't even touch them. It was just like, really? I did that? And then when I finally touched it, I'm like, oh my God, I did. So, but whether writing a book like I did, or a blog, or a newsletter, or posting on social media, or just having fun, all of these have similar traits. And so I'm kind of going to go over these with obviously an introduction. I'm going to talk a bit about photography and some of the new adventures I had and some of the misadventures I had. The ever-increasing problem of getting distracted, which I did plenty when I was trying to find the book on my computer, which took me 3 full days of searching to even find my book, because I hadn't looked at it since 2008. So getting distracted and then finding other cool bugs. And then making huge decisions about the layout. I'm not a professional graphic artist or anything like that, but I just looked at lots and lots of books to try to come up with what I came up with. And then meeting with the publisher. By the time I met with a publisher, the book was pretty close to, it was how I wanted it to be, but it was too complicated. So he said they would not have their graphic artist take over, that I would have to do it, continue it, which was a bit of a nightmare, but at least I got to do what I wanted to do. And then I wound up finding, I actually finished this publication on 2 continents, because my dad had, I had taken him over to England for his next to last visit with some good friends over there. And fortunately, they had Corel Draw, which is what I wrote my book in, which is not exactly what you would normally write a book in, but that's all I had. And then, so I finished it over there and came back, and in my mail was the big proofs, the big galleys to proof once more. And I like, this is a photo I took some years back on a butterfly or bug trip with Ron Huber here, who's a cicindelid expert and butterfly expert and just expert all around. Him and his wife were living here in Kansas City, having moved down here for quite a few years from Minneapolis. They since retired and moved back up there. And then this is Glenn Salisbury, who was with the State Department of Agriculture, who had joined us in looking at bugs. And I like this quote. I did not quote, I don't know where I got it from, but I got it from someplace and I like it. And you think about, you know, doing something on my own, like doing this book on my own. I could have had somebody telling me all along how to do it. I would not have done it if that was the case. So it's just, I like this quote of, a lesson learned through your own eyes, no matter how simple, it always is a revelation and is always accorded a place in our memory. And you all as butterfly enthusiasts and nature enthusiasts, I think you can relate to that very easily. Oh yeah, there's the rest here. Proofing master sheets and holding my breath. Now, one of the most important things when writing a book is that you need to get it very organized from start to finish, right? But then of course reality kicks in, and this is what you have, going this way and that way to try to finish it. So obviously with the advent of digital technology, my interest in photographing bugs just exploded. I mean, I have a gazillion slides of insects from my past, which I have not looked at in a long time because I'm getting way, way better pictures through digital photography. So I wound up, when I turned 50, I wound up deciding to go out every weekend to photograph and really learn butterflies, because I didn't really know them all that well. I remembered learning the little little blue-tailed fly. That's a fly. Let's see. Never mind. Anyway, some of the things I'd learned as a child didn't apply anymore. So, but I really decided to learn. And since I was at that age where trying to remember things because you got too much in your brain, I wanted to try to document through a little handout for myself. Now, recognizing that a 50-year-old brain and body, not quite as perky as when we were college age, but nevertheless, I persevered. I was really, really into it. I did most of the outings by myself, which I wouldn't necessarily say was the brightest idea, but it was just a time in my life. I wanted to get out. I wanted to explore and just be on my own. I'd had a dog and she had died after 20 years. And so that actually allowed me to go any place, not just places that allowed dogs. So every weekend, and it was a fabulous winter or summer. We had a fabulous weather all summer. And I only had the air conditioning on a handful of times, so it was great. But, and one of the funny incidences that I don't have photographed because nobody was there to photograph me, was I was out on this county road, gravel road, and I was driving down it, and all of a sudden I noticed there was a bunch of butterflies puddling. So I thought, oh, I better go see what's in there. And I start to walk up to it and I go, oh, it's just a bunch of sulfurs, and I've got all those photographed probably pretty well. But then as I got closer, I went, ooh, there's a little blue something in there. And I ran back to my van, got the butterfly book that I had, whichever one I was using at the time. And I went, oh my God, that's a marine blue. And we get those occasionally up here. They're not a common butterfly. But then I found myself on the ground, laying flat out on this road with camera, taking pictures of this little butterfly and thinking, what in the heck am I doing? And what happens if somebody drives by? But it was a little county road, so I wound up being, nobody ran over me, nor got a chuckle out of me either. So one of the hard lessons learned of digital photography, and maybe it should be called a myth, and that is early on in digital photography, all of us folks thought, oh, no film, no worries, take 100 photos of the same thing. Well, that's a nightmare, because then you have to edit 100 photos of the same thing. So that's one thing you learn with a digital photography, is to be much more discerning in how you're doing your photography, and don't think you can take and take and take all these pictures and wow, wow, wow. No, it's a nightmare. So when I got into digital single lens reflex photography, this was my basic setup, which was a 200 millimeter Nikon macro lens, which is a fantastic lens. It also weighs a ton, but I was younger then, I could handle it. And this was actually was in Costa Rica. And then to get better lighting, I splurged on these Nikon creative photography flash units. And I used them for quite a while. I got pretty disappointed with them because they took way too long to charge, and the batteries didn't last long, and they're very expensive batteries. And at some point in time, I said, to heck with it. I need to figure out another way. So that traveling to the tropics was also a new thing for me, having never been out of the country to look for bugs elsewhere with other bug nerds. And that turned out to be a really delightful time in my life. So most of the photos in my book actually were taken with this 200 macro lens. Like I said, it's a terrific lens. It weighs a lot, but I eventually had to stop using it because it was just too doggone heavy. And I traded it for a couple other lenses from a friend of mine. Blah, blah, blah. Well, that says all that. Okay. So it's a continual evolution in photography. If you get into photography, you know this, that cameras and flash systems, I've had various cameras. I always think it's funny because when we're younger and we buy that precious single lens reflex camera, and we think, this is going to be my best camera for the next 30 or 40 years. And that's not the case anymore. Digital cameras get replaced on a regular basis because they keep improving them. And they keep getting expensive too. But anyway, the flash systems, but you do need electronic flash for close-up photography. Some people are pretty good without it, but most need some source of electronic flash to give you nice sharp images and good depth of field, because when you're focusing close, there's very little depth of field. So this was what I used initially, because I was just Googling at the time. So this is my, this is on a tripod with my camera and the 200 macro. And then I had an extension tube here, not extension tube, but it was a, they call it extenda light. But anyway, there was a Fresnel lens at the end of this to shoot the light further away. And that worked pretty well. I used that for quite a while. And then it didn't. So then in this next picture on the right, I'm not sure, are you seeing my mouse when it goes around in circles here? Oh, but you're.
I'm not. Do it. Make a little spin on it. Yeah, I am seeing that.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's small. It's small, but I see it.
Okay, I'm doing it on the wrong screen. Anyway, this was this was in the tropics. I think this was Costa Rica too. So then I moved to, as I kept getting a little older, I got tired of dealing with my, tripods. So I moved to the monopod world here. I still have a 200 macro, but I've moved to the big electronic flash on the camera, because if you're shooting using the 200 and using something further away, it's usually mostly just fill flash, so it doesn't make a lot of difference. I mean, it does make a difference, but so, and I've tried lots of different tripods over the years and tripod heads. I have a whole closet full. Mainly I use a monopod, but I also have a variety of monopods that I've liked and not liked. That's one of the fun things of photography these days. So, and I do use a long lens a lot, not just a, like I said, I got rid of the 200 macro, but I actually do use a zoom lens, that Sigma zoom lens that the birders really enjoy. And I have liked to do a lot of my photography of bigger bugs, big bugs or birds or frogs or whatever's running around. Okay, so I had read that you want the camera lens or the flash at a 45-degree angle. That's sort of what duplicates what the sunlight is like. So I had bought a L bracket here with my flash up there, and there's the 200 macro. And again, it worked for a while, but it just kept getting heavier and heavier. I eventually switched back to my 200 or 105 macro. That's because I use a Nikon, and still had the L flash, oops, let's go backwards there, previous. Still had the L bracket, but I wound up starting to work on having diffuse light with this diffuser here on with the big flash. Okay, but that still was a lot of camera. So I got to thinking about how to get a tripod head that I was really useful. So I had heard about Wimberley type gimbal tripod heads, and these, and I looked that up, and it was $595, and I went, holy Toledo, I don't think that's worth it. But Google, thank goodness, I found a Movo photo gimbal for $100, and you know, you can't tell the difference between these two pictures. And so I've been using that since for both bird photography and a lot of insect photography. So one problem with the short macro, the 100mm macro lenses, is they usually don't have a tripod collar. So that means when you screw, if you use a tripod, you've got to screw the tripod, screw it right in on the body. And for a long lens, that's not good at all because it'll wear out. But even for a short lens. And so but once again, perseverance paid off, and I found this, I think I found this on Etsy. It cost a lot of money. It was $30. So it was a tripod collar that I could put on my 105 macro, and then I could attach it to my gimbal here. So that was great. The gimbals, if you've never used one, they give you really good motion, smooth motion. When you let go, they stay in their original spot. All these, especially videographers like that. But I am still pissed off or ticked off that camera people haven't figured out that you need 2 screw holes to keep things nice and steady, because otherwise you're going to strip those holes out. That's my commentary on life. This was something called I Shoot. I think I got it on Etsy. So, okay, so here's a little video. Let me click of using it. There we go. Hopefully that comes through.
Squeeze freely, or you can put a little tension on it so it's a little harder. Or screw it in place. And this one's here. You can loosen a lot, so you can just do this up and down. You can do both of them back and forth. Just loosen it a little bit. You got a little tension on it, so back and forth and down.
All right, it worked. Oops, no, I don't need it to work again. Go away. Let's see, next. Okay, next. Oh, go away. Now that had my long lens on it. And again, a trouble with long lenses is that they're heavy. And even though the base plate here is what you screw, and that's got the collar on the lens, and the base plate goes into those Wimberleys, or Wimberley-like, but they're heavy. So it kept sliding down. So I outsmarted it. I got 2 pieces of wood that were cut just right from some project in the past, and I put them to stop the arm from going. And so if you look at the bottom, I used 3 screws on this one. So 1 each to hold the piece of wood and holding this on. So that was a little workaround, and it works fine. And I mostly, if I do use any kind of assistance, I use a monopod. I don't hardly ever use a tripod. I do use a tripod to hold the black light by my sheet. but it's a 1949 tripod from my grandfather, who liked to film things. So this is the tripod or monopod I use now. I use one with feet, so I get some good balance. And this is the, what is the brand? Well, now I can't remember. Look up one that's got black and red. This one has your regular twist off to pull the tripod or monopod taller or shorter. I also bought the one that has a twist function because I thought that would be easier to use for doing bug photos, and I wound up not really liking that for that. But again, why I have multiple tripods and monopods in my closet. And you might not have noticed, but right under this big lens, because this problem was ongoing of the lens slipping, so I tried a cute little bracket, one of those screw type brackets, and that didn't work. And that's when I went to this, which I've used since. Oh, there it is. But I keep evolving, and I have always liked this L bracket. And as the foam wears out, I just wrap this with athletic tape, that stretchy stuff. And so the foam never fell off. But I like that because over here you can see that I twist it, and it makes a, I twist it so it's going into my shoulder there and my pec there. And so it's acting like I kind of like have a tripod, but my body's part of it. And that has been great. I shot a lot of pictures that way until by twisting this back and forth, it did strip the little hole there. That's why I don't have two. And I also have a problem dropping cameras. Like my good one just hopped off the table in my kitchen, the island. I have no idea why, but it just hopped off. Anyway, so it resulted in some really nice duct tape. This is actually really good duct tape. And to keep the base plate on, but I can't use the screw hole anymore because it's stripped out. But believe it or not, the camera still works. And then another little drop I had, the pin that holds the, you know, if you ever change your lens, you should see that little pin coming out of the camera. That got apparently bent, so I can't get the macro off, which is okay since I just shoot macro. But since I'm going to be 6 weeks recovery from surgery after tomorrow, it's going into the repair shop. So I won't get remote, I won't be depressed that I don't have a camera. But this has worked great. And I've not seen anything. I've looked and looked and looked for some kind of structure like that. And there are shoulder braces, but none of them work right for me. And then along the way was coming to learn more about bug photography. And I started going to these bug shots weekends that are put on by, this is Alex Wild, he's the big ant expert, and John Abbott, Thomas Shahan, Peter, can't remember his last name, and Nikki Bay. So they do this incredible weekends. They do one in the United States. Obviously last year they didn't, but one in the United States, and then one out of the country. I've not been to any of the ones out of the country, but that would be cool to be going with bug nerds, of course. But here they really emphasize light box photography. So, and my cat apparently liked light box photography too. So light boxes can be cheap. They can just be made out of foam board, or you can buy expensive ones off the internet. But you can set up your flashes so they're reflecting off the white. Another adaptation I've done with aging is this is a lighted mirror or lighted magnifier, so I can see what I'm photographing better. And so this is light box photography is fantastic because you can really get some awesome pictures like this six-spotted tiger beetle, which actually they will slow down. One of their techniques is to put them in timeout, where they put a Petri dish on top of them. And eventually they kind of get tired of running around in circles, and you can get a few pictures snapped off. But if that's too close to the edge of the table, they'll just push it off, and then they're off in your house somewhere. But those are more of those misadventures. Other things is when you go on trips with bug nerds is learning, doing something you would never have thought you would do. This is Joe Lapp, who I think he's from Texas, although I don't remember. He's the big spider guy. So this is actually near Austin.
Yeah,
So up until this, I would never have had a huge spider crawling on me.
For my mom.
Mhm.
Mom photos became-
But you know, you're bug people and it's raining. What do you do?
Take a mom photo. So when you get to that, you get to a peak or anything now when you have to take a mom photo.
So that was a lot of fun. And then that was a close up of the spider there. I can't remember it was in Austin, outside of Austin, and I can't remember where it was. I guess it doesn't matter. So other things I've done to modify how I get around is for black lighting, I have a chair. And I have now used, these are from a photo studio setup. So they're black on one side, white on the other. And if you can ever figure out, they're sprung steel. If you can ever figure out how to fold them up, that's great. But I have never figured that out. And they just sit behind my sofa during the winter. So I can sit here. And this is a camera. And I don't know if you can see this too well. This is the flash units I use now, which are a double flash with and I guess that was the best picture I had of it. Oh, well. And these flashes are really nice. So anyway, another thing when you're doing black lighting, and this is a mercury vapor lamp. This is a fluorescent black light. And they attract a little different assortment of bugs. But one thing I like about this is one, it's in spring steel, so it stays taut. And you got to be really careful on your your sheets you buy. You don't want to buy a cheap sheet because they'll be too loose a weave like here. So it's totally distracting to that spider. And with the studio sheet there, you can still see it, but you can blow out the white much easier in Photoshop so you don't have that issue. And then adventures in photography, you know, anybody that's done nighttime photography know the tree frogs like to come out and partake. So I was out there sitting, and of course the black light, oops, of course the black light is sitting low. Well, I got tired of that being on the side of my eye. So I'm like, what do I do? And I looked over on some plants, and just some of the plant things they stick in there to tell you what they were. I thought, oh, I bet that'll fit right there, and that'll block the light. Well, it did. And then a little tree frog decided that was a good place to stop. So the other thing I do is sweep netting. Now this is supposed to work too. I wound up having to get a mobility scooter because my knees were so bad. And so here we are, sweep netting. I think that was a great way. I'm still going to do that this summer. So you just drive along, sweep net away. And then I've got the, but then if you do that, like on their property, I got stuck. Fortunately, they had a little tractor, so they pulled me out. So I got to scoot back to the house. Oops. Oh, and then sitting on the scooter, I've got my, just a big plastic bowl, square one that I've got. Okay, okay, turn that one off. There we go. And so I've lined the outside with just typing paper. So you got this white, and then you got the translucent plastic inside, which gives you a nice light source. And these are the two articulating arms of the flashes that I use now, which are perfect. Now, a little bit about book writing. That was a lot about photography, but that's what a lot of it, you know, the book writing was a long time ago now. Photography keeps going. Well, it is a challenge, and I use what's called CorelDRAW, whether or not you know that one. CorelDRAW and WordPerfect are the same company. Not necessarily a type of book you use for writing a book, but that's all I had because I knew it, and I knew it really well by the time I got done with the book. But you know, you can set up, once I decided on the system, which was the left side was going to be all the written information, the right side was be the photographs. And I decided that by flipping through books. And some books have the pictures on the left and the writing on the right. But in reality, that's not how we flip books. So, you know, like I said, I bought lots of different butterfly books to see what I liked or didn't like. So you can set it up with all these, you know, lines to help you line things up. And then ultimately, what I wanted, if I could get it, I wanted to try to get all the stages that I could find and photograph. Now, this is a southern dog face, which is probably pretty common in your part of the world. It's not a real common one up here, but they do come up here for a while in the summer. And this is one that has a winter or fall and summer variants. So this is a late summer, this is a summer. So that was fun to get both. This one's actually laying an egg. I think it was pretty worn out, it was lying on its side. And this nice backlit one shows the dog face well. This was actually one of the last butterflies I chased. I think after that, I was pretty well done chasing butterflies. And then most of you probably know sulfurs are notorious because they don't rest with their wings open. So that became a challenge on my part to see if I could photograph the wings open. And so that's either when they're landing or when they're taking off. And that was, that's part of the sport of what I was doing. And so sometimes I was pretty successful, sometimes not. And also, since I was doing all this work, I mean, this is an incredible amount of detail, and no graphic artist is gonna, you couldn't pay them enough to do the level of detail I did. And I did use lots of circles and arrows, which was another thing I found irritating in books. They would describe something, but I'm like, just point to it. So that's what I did. Or I forgot. I gotta keep looking over here. Arrows and circles and stuff. Now, so this is kind of a closer view of the top of the page, the left page. So this was a way of dealing with trying to avoid copyright infringement. It's like, is it really a copyright infringement if you say there are three broods each summer? Just because that came out of a book and said that, doesn't seem like that's copyright infringement. That's just general information. But in order to avoid that, I wound up with this, what I thought actually wound up being a lot better way of doing it. So in one view, you could see all these different aspects of the butterfly you're looking at. And then I provide the Missouri distribution in Missouri and Kansas and the greater Kansas City area. And then so everything's consistent. Then the bottom half of that page, if they're similar species, I describe those, what the caterpillars eat. And I just use larval food rather than host, just again, thinking about ways of avoiding terms that somebody has to look up. If there's variations and other fascinating information, and then other names here that have been used in the past or currently that are used. If in case you have an old name, you might actually see it there. Oh, and then, you know, after teaching for all those years, I am a teacher. I like learning and I like teaching. And one thing when I was working on the book, I wanted to do for sure was make sure I put the describer of the species, in this case, Linnaeus. But then I got to thinking, are all these books different? Do they just make up about when they put parentheses around it or not? I didn't know. So I found out. And I go into detail about how that is in the book. I also had to make a decision on, when I talk about the plants, the host plants or the food plants, do I put the common name and then the technical name, or technical name and common name? So I decided to go with the common name. And then I have a whole list of the plants in the back of the book that have the common name and then the technical name. And that made life a whole lot easier. Okay. Then whose nomenclature are you using? Another decision. NABA had at the time come up with what they considered the accepted common names, and which some people liked, some people didn't. And but at that time, here, get the circle over here. Brock and Kaufman's book had just come out in 2006, and then Glassberg's, of course, both used NABA's naming convention. So after some discussion and talking to different people, I wound up deciding to continue with that. Because then there's Jackie Miller's book from 1992. This is if you don't have this and you're interested, this is really good because it's an excellent listing of all the more commonly used names over the years. And so, and I use that, I use that as a huge source in my book to list all the other common names that had been known. And then let people talk about the binomial naming system and what's genus and species. Actually realizing what I didn't know was that there's a lot of different definitions of species. In fact, at the time I was writing, there's at least 25 species concepts, and of those 5 are used in the field of Lepidoptera. When I'm talking to people, I pretty much keep it much simpler than that, but there is that. And then down here a little bit, I do go into quite a bit of information about the scientific names because I found it fascinating. I love putting the date, the name, and the date. I mean, like something, 1801, somebody's out there tramping around in the woods, identifying butterflies and describing them. I'm just like, really? I just think it's fascinating. So definitely wanted all that in there. And I know you probably can't read all this, but if you get the book, you can. This part, oops, let's go backwards. Previous, there we go. I didn't know what holotypes were, and topotypes and all those types. Didn't really know what they were. Floyd Preston up here in Kansas, and Lawrence, who just passed away recently, one of the biggest, him and June were their butterfly collection they donated to McGuire Center. It was probably one of the most significant collections ever that McGuire had acquired. And it was just awesome, awesome people. But anyway, just talking about this stuff, whether people want to remember it or not. And I also had to decide whose scientific names I'm going to use. So I used Oppler and Warren book. I used their technical names. So lots of little details. And then since I'm writing the book, somebody would say, well, why don't you do this? Or why don't you do that? Well, I wound up those bugs that didn't sit with their wings open, or ones I simply couldn't find, I made use of Richard Heitzman, who was the butterfly moth expert in Missouri, and he was a postman on the side. And then June and Floyd's outstanding collection. He was a civil engineering, petroleum engineer. So I was able to get these photos from their collections. And so like this one, I could talk to what are gynandromorphs and sexual mosaics, which I won't go into. You can Google these things, but where they just look different for whatever reason. And that all has to do with like right in the egg and the zygotes and all that stuff. I'm a scientist up to a point. And then these were photographed in Liberty by a friend of mine, Linda Williams, and just natural aberrations, natural variations and colorations of a given butterfly. So again, just enlightening people to all these varieties. And this is, these are examples of a bunch of sulfurs and variations in size and coloration. These are male orange sulfurs, those are females. And then to find out there's female orange sulfurs. And so that was fascinating. And even more exciting to me was this upper left picture right here. This particular specimen, Floyd had collected as a 14-year-old boy in Arizona, spread it, mounted it, and it was in this condition 70 years later when I photographed it for this book. It was just, that kind of stuff just blew me away, just to have that kind of connection to somebody that his interest, oh my gosh. And this is June. June did almost all the spreading. Some 50,000 specimens were spread, some oh, I don't know, like 40,000 paper that McGuire Center has actually hired somebody to start spreading because the collection is so significant. This is Richard Heitzman working at his place, and there's June and Floyd Preston. Marvelous people, all gone now though, sadly. Now, after you get all this done, which is a nightmare in itself, I literally had to make a PDF of every single page. Not that that's difficult, it's just there's 407 pages. And I had to do it in a, there's different forms of PDFs, and this was for printing purposes. So every single page through 407, I had to create PDF for printing purposes. Another nightmare. But once the book got done, and as I kept adding things and blah, 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 like here, we got chapters covering many interesting facts about butterflies. I also have quick compare pages. So those are like all of the butterflies, but like in this case, in this swallowtail, it's just two individuals of each to look through. So you can thumb through and find them. And then I know that's yellow, but that's because it came off a different slide. And then grass skippers, or skippers in general, because they're such a challenge. Actually, I have a whole chapter on identifying those. Oh, here they are. Here we go. So I have separate keys to identifying all those troublesome skippers. And that was another area of big challenge of getting all the skippers. And I didn't quite get them all, so some are the pin specimens, but that's okay. And then you've already seen this page, but had decided to do this detailed page on the left and the pictures on the right. And then I thought, especially after, oh God, Richard Heitzman kept bringing out these butterflies, and they're just so spectacular. Like he brought out to me the Diana fritillaries that he'd collected years ago. And I thought, oh my God, we don't have those in Kansas City, but I gotta have those in my book. So I did. So I just named that chapter as Interesting Species Outside the Area, and then a variety of others there. And fortunately, there is a checklist for Missouri and Kansas butterflies, so I included that. And, you know, when you go backwards on what I was doing, or yeah, I was actually having butterfly photography withdrawal one weekend in July of the year I started when I was 50. And I was having the withdrawal because it was raining. Within 2 hours of the whole radius of Kansas City, there was no place to go. So then I had this bright thought. No liquor was involved either. That maybe I could write a book. Well, I did, and as you've just seen, 4 years later, it was published. So how does one go about writing a book? Well, I've already told you a bit about that. I think I actually did it all backwards, but it still worked. And I did buy every butterfly guide anywhere I went to, again, to look at what I liked, didn't like. One of the ones I liked particularly was Bob Pyle had published his book of Cascadia butterflies. And he put a lot of personal comments in. And I thought, yay, that would be good. So I did too. Let's see. And obviously, you know, ease of use and whatnot. And I didn't want a guide that just had one picture and then you move on and not really know what you're doing, seeing. But layout was just part of the process. It was a big part since I was doing it all. And I did get paid some money for doing it, but I wasn't going to retire on it. And then, of course, how do I get my information? So I wound up settling on like, I think it was about 12 sources, different books, some really good ones. Actually, well, they had to be good. Some had a lot of information, some had not much, but still had some good stuff. So it meant, since I covered 100 species in detail, it meant that I actually went through these books, each book 100 times for all these 100 species. Oh my God, it was boring. But fortunately, one of the winters I was working on it, the Winter Olympics were on. So I had the little TV on my desk and I was watching the Olympics while I was attempting to take notes. But since then, expanding beyond that, during the time I started going bug trips out of the country, which was wonderful, meeting all sorts of fun people, like Mike, at bug trips, going to bug shot, just fantastic. I 100% encourage you to do that if you want to improve your photography. I started contributing to Bug Guide back in 2008. Now I'm a total obsessive over that. And now, especially with the pandemic last year and the fact that I had knee surgery in the fall, I had breast cancer in the spring. So last year was kind of shot between that and the pandemic. So I decided to focus on my own property. And I thought, I'm going to do whatever I can to see what all I have out there. And so I've been doing that ever since. So coming down to the finish, thank God for Quick Trip on my way to work. I still was working full time, and Starbucks Frappuccinos and donuts. Because once I knuckled down to writing and trying to get it done in time for the Butterfly Festival, oh my God, I was not getting much sleep. And so that was the only way I was surviving work. I don't know if my boss ever figured out how dead I was on my feet, but yes, my cholesterol was a disaster that year. But, I think all of us that are in the natural interest in the natural world, and especially bugs or birds or whatever you're interested in, we want to work to change people's perspective that these little critters are not just something you squish. I mean, I despise it when somebody asks, like at the Aldo Leopold thing, well, what's it good for? Like, oh my God. So, and also being excited about it. And then when you can pass this on to a younger generation, this little girl saw the book, a friend of mine teaches in it's a preschool, but it's through a park department, and it's all about nature. It's a nature preschool. And she's seen that book. And I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, I'm going to bring that book for her. And just enjoying holding on to bugs. She's reading to her great grandfather. I'm just like, wow. Then of course, the dedication of my book was for my mom, who passed away before it was published, but she definitely, she tried helping me initially, but it just got too hard for her to do that. But I still got her out to enjoy some of my outings in the backyard. So, oops. Oh, that's it. Sorry. So that's it. Thank you. Okay, screen sharing has stopped as a shared window is closed. Oh, well, that's true. I closed that window.
Oh, thank you, Betsy.
Okay. Wow. Hey, I even kept within my time limit.
Thank you, Betsy. That was a very humane, self-effacing, enjoyable story.
Well, good.
That was very nice.
Thank you. Well, it took me a while to figure out what to talk about, and I'm like, oh, my book. Oh, yeah.
I noticed that you did not have a Kindle, Kindle type edition to the book.
No, I don't. I may, if it stays, people are still interested in it. I may, because I've only got about 100 copies left out of the original 3,500 I had. So I may not have very many years left of the one I have, and getting it republished is probably next to impossible. It's just going to be too costly. I mean, I'm not going to be able to pay for it. So a Kindle type version would be good, but that is a whole nother world that I haven't tried to deal with yet. I would need to find probably somebody younger that wants to deal with it, because my brain does not want to. But that would be, I mean, I would like to do that, because that would be a great next step.
I kind of naively thought it'd be very easy, since it's all electronically in the computer anyway.
Well, you can do it simply enough, but if you want to be able to move around in the book, like find things,
Right.
that kind of stuff, yeah, you got to do it. You got to do things differently. So beyond that, I don't know. So I haven't tried it, but I know it's quite a bit of work. So my brain is not capable of that at the moment.
Does anybody else have some questions?
Anybody want to write a book now?
Hey, I mean, you're so frank with us about everything. Did you make any money out of this, or did you break even? Or
No. No, you're not going to make money on field guides. It's just, I mean, sure, now I just whatever I sell, I got that money, but no, you don't make money on it because considering the hours, unbelievable hours that took to prepare it, there's just no way you could sell it. And I'd have to sell it for a lot of money. And that's why, a lot of these books, nature books, or specific groups of insects are so expensive. You're spending $700, $800 on them because they don't have a widespread acceptance and not like a gazillion people are going to buy them. So it's tough. But no, you don't make money. And Floyd Preston, who gave me so much encouragement, so much positiveness, was talking about his days in California as a youngster, knowing going to the Loricum Society, if anybody's aware of that, still around, and meeting now I'm dropping his name. He wrote The Butterflies of California. Oh crud.
Emil?
Huh?
Emil?
No,
Thomas
that
Emil?
was
That's
later.
Florida.
No, he did one, I think Southern California, but it was before then.
The gentleman at Stanford, who wrote The Population Bomb, he was
Ehrlich? No,
Ehrlich.
no,
That's what I
not
was thinking.
Ehrlich. No, this was back in the early 1900s.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, his father was a famous entomologist. Anyway, doesn't matter now. But after Floyd got married, he decided to take his wife to meet him. And he got there and the same question was, well, did you ever make any money on it? And he says, and this was 20 years later. And he says, no, I'm just glad they're all gone. Because that's the way life is on these types of guides. And getting a publisher, I was just lucky. I mean, yeah, I had a good book, but I was just lucky that I guess his wife liked butterflies. I'll remember this guy, Comstock.
All right.
Comstock. Yeah, he'd been a medical doctor and then had fallen in love with bugs, butterflies especially, and was a curator at.
Cornell.
No, he was West Coast.
Okay.
Now, the senior Comstock, I don't know if he was East Coast or not. I don't remember.
Okay.
And then there's the wife of the senior,
Right. And
keeping the entomology world confused. But anyway, yeah. So it's a passion. It's out of love and interest of doing it. I'm glad I did it. I don't regret doing it because I did not set out to make money. I think you write novels for that. and hope for the best even then, because it's a very competitive world. So.
Betsy, this is Ron George.
Yeah.
I've written 2 or 3 books.
Oh, good.
Totally different subject. And they were originally published by Aiken Press here in Austin.
Okay.
And then Mr. Aiken passed away and the rest of his family. And that company was sold to Wild Horse Press in Fort Worth. And I didn't even ask, but one day they called and said, could we make these your books, ebooks?
Oh.
How much is that going to cost me? And they said, oh, nothing. And so we'll give you 50% of every ebook we sell. And so they set it up with Barnes and Noble and with Amazon.
Yeah.
And I get this check. And I'm selling far more ebooks than I ever did hard copies. And,
I believe that. Yeah.
and it's just a nice little source, and you get books sold in strange places. I had an Air Force book, and most of the buyers are in Great Britain.
Wow.
Of the ebooks, I haven't looked at to see why. But anyway, you might just check with your publisher is my point. And
well,
see.
they're out of business.
Oh, well, there may be another publisher that would pick that up.
Yeah, I need to work on that aspect. And I probably will, because I think that's a valuable way to go.
Mhm.
But not until some level of my health kind of stays stable, which it hasn't for a long time.
Okay.
But yeah, I would like that.
Yeah.
But then in the meantime, I'm just enjoying finding bugs and new county records and That's always fun. Definitely fun.
Enjoyed your presentation. Good
Thank
job.
you. Thank you.
So Betsy, when does your season start in the spring? When?
Well, actually, last night was warm enough and I black lighted and actually got a new ichneumon. I have yet to identify, but it's really distinctive. So I'm hoping it's identifiable considering ichneumons are so difficult.
Right.
And it's supposed to be warm tonight. And I'm thinking, let's see, I'm going to get picked up at 4:30 this morning for surgery. So maybe I should just stay up all night black lighting. Because I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep. But yeah, it's in full swing now. Yeah, we had snow like a week ago, but that didn't really help much. And my prairie, I have it mowed every November, so it still hasn't quite grown up enough to bother sweep netting in it yet. But it will, probably about time I could start sweeping things and moving my back and doing such things. But yeah, never give up and just keep going. I mean, there's ups and downs. I mean, there's some days it's like I question what the hell am I doing because of the pain levels. And then other days I'm like, oh, life is pretty good. I found a new bug. So that's good. And so it is. It's fun to have a subject that I might not travel out of the country anytime soon. Certainly not until COVID's done with. But I got my whole backyard and my flower gardens and maybe my arboreal bugs.
So what sources of what are you using for references for the beetles you're finding?
Beetles are basically Marshall's big book and then Evan's book and then Bug Guide. And I've done pretty good. I also have a whole group called the LBBs, the little brown beetles. So that, yeah, as far as what I'm just looking at right now. Yeah, Marshall's books. I mean, how does that guy write these things? I mean, I know he has other writers to him, but oh my God, they're incredible. Man.
Long winters in Canada.
In Canada. Yeah, because he's got the flies, the beetles, and then the general one. I'm pretty sure there's another one in the offing too. But they're incredible books. They weigh a ton, but boy, they are well worth it. You have any other suggestions on beetles?
Well, I mean, the longhorn beetles have a lot of.
Oh yeah, I've got longhorn books. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I've got
lake beetles have some options.
I've got Lingfelter, and I've got that. I think at Ohio. Yeah, the little one.
South Carolina
Or North Carolina, Northwest.
What's the who's the author in South Carolina? Anyway, yeah, the scarabs. You know, some families are more popular than others. The scarabs and
Yeah, I
such.
do have one scarab book. It's very technical, so I haven't really used it much. I don't, since I'm only photographing, I don't want to collect because curating photographs is a nightmare. And if I did that and curated a bug collection, oh God, I'd be in an insane asylum by now.
Right. Well, you can. I mean, I 100% get that. I've managed to collect and photograph and then donate directly without processing the specimens. Just, you know, here's what I got at this one site one day or how many ever days, and send it over to Texas A&M, and then they curate it to their standards and such.
And that's great. That's great. I just haven't. I don't know. Life gets complicated when I'm trying to do all the orders, which is insane. But I don't know. I just like doing it. I enjoy it.
Yeah, you know, you start out, you know, flies. They're not that interesting. Then you get, oh, okay, they are more interesting than you.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of cool flies.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's amazing how we you know, move around in our interests through time.
Yeah, like the syrphids have been my favorite.
Oh,
And I've got about, I think I got close to 50 species photographed from just around Kansas City.
that's impressive.
Yeah, I'm impressed. And in fact, although the only ones I got last year were 2 at my black lights,
Mm.
but they were 2 new ones for me. Because I also spray honey water mixture out along one trail that's by my woods, and I got lots of sapling redbud trees, so they got these great landing pads. So I spray the honey water up and down that trail, and boy, I get some pretty cool things there.
Anybody
That's
else anybody else have any questions?
I liked your wood blocks holding your lens in place on that lens plate.
Yeah, that was scrap from something my dad had done, and I found it and I went, wow, that's why you save scraps.
That's a good idea.
Good point. Well, I thank everybody for attending, and I thank Betsy for telling us about this. It was very appealing to have such a warm, frank discussion of all the trials you went through.
Yeah, I didn't mention the broken leg, and let's see. I never got bit by a rattlesnake though.
Hey.
I did break a leg on one fall.
Oh,
But
okay.
anyway, but besides that, I don't know. Yeah, there were quite a few mishaps, but I considered that the sport of it, the sport of butterfly chasing.
Those,
Well, good luck on your surgery tomorrow morning.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I need that.
Yes.
I'll be more relaxed
Okay.
shortly thereafter. But thanks for inviting me. I appreciate
Yes.
it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good
Take
night.
care, all. Enjoy the bugs.
Yeah.
All right.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thanks so much, Betsy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night to everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Uh-huh.